Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to be looking at the weekly meta breakdown for the Explorer format. We're going to be focusing on best of 3, but a lot of these deck lists can also be leveraged in best of 1. We are going to be focusing on new kind of decks, ideas, or modifications to existing decks featuring new cards from Thunder Junction in this video. Is it Phoenix? We have the Rakdos Vampires, Amalia decks, all pretty much the same. So we're not going to be covering them for this video. You can check any of the other videos in the playlist. They'll cover them there as well. So we've had about a week of Thunder Junction, and we've had a lot of Pioneer results as well. The big kind of breakout card is Slickshot Show Off in a lot of decks, but we also have access to some of like the black cards in Karavek and stuff like that. So we are going to take a look at some of these lists. We're going to start off with the popularity of decks as tracked from Untap, what you see on the screen, and then go to the win rates themselves. Untapped is a companion tool for those of you who are new, so it tracks like your own individual win rates, aggregates all the users, gives a whole bunch of cool stats. Link for Untapped is in the video description if you want to get started, and then I will paste these deck lists with timestamps so you can just copy them to your heart's content. Before we jump into it, just a reminder, we're pushing for 15,000 subs by the end of June. We're almost halfway through 12,000, so if you haven't subbed to the channel, we do weekly meta breakdowns for every format, provided that there's data. And we do like for events, stuff like that. So it always kind of gives you the edge in terms of what are the highest performing decks on the MTG Arena ladder. So greatly appreciate if you can. Likes and comments also go a long way to helping. So jumping into it, popularity of the day, Rakdos Vampires, about 13%, Mono Black Discard, the Waste Not decks, about 10%, Phoenix at 10, Azorius Control at 7, then you have like Amalia at 5, Is It Ensouled, Demir Control, and Rakdos Sacrifice. All within kind of a grouping there at about 5%. The only kind of deck that I'm interested to see is the Gruul Aggro deck. Just hasn't really been showing the volume of games yet, but this is probably one of the more popular decks that has come out recently. And we'll take a look. There's a couple different variations. There's the Mono Red Burn, the Gruul Burn, and then the Gruul kind of tempo oriented. So we'll take a look at that. So we are going to be looking 18,000 games of Magic played, Platinum to Mythic rank. We also got a cool stat with like some of the Mythic players who are doing well with certain decks, so we'll pull up some of these as well. So the highest win rate deck, because it's still fairly new, we're doing a fairly small sample size. There's Gruul Burn. Now, this version of the deck is a little bit different than the ones that are going around from Pioneer purposes. Most notably, like Rockvale should be the Copperline Gorgeous. You shouldn't be playing Rockvale in this deck. You want as many untapped lands as possible. And then you should be playing the Pain land over the Red Crown Pathway. So the mana base can be improved. I would say copying the mana base for the next deck that we look at if you're interested in something like this. This version here is mono red in the main board. It's got more of the mashup between the mono red Wizards package, splashing green for Questing Druid, pick your poisons, and then more Questing Druids in the sideboard. But the big thing is just playing a bunch of cheap spells that we see like in Standard, Slickshot Show Off, Slipe Stage for card advantage, Skewer, and Wizard's Lightning all mixed into there. Pick your poisons, really flexible against any sort of enchantments, Vein Ripper, Traxa, stuff like that, Questing Druid for card advantage, and then just like similar case of the Crimson Pulse mixed into there, some Witch Stalkers mixed in. The more kind of Pioneer version, so ignore this. So this is from like 7 June's profiles. Just they're 11 and 7, but ignore their win rate. But this deck list has been putting up a lot of results on Pioneer leagues as well. So very similar, but you're playing Audacity main, you're playing Blossoming Defense main, which plays really nice as a protection spell. A Demonic Ruckus in there can be plotted away, and then gives another way to give Menace and Trample. Full Questing Druids main. To be on like. So most of the lists are on 3 Atarka's Command and 2 Audacities. So that's kind of where the split is. This is, I'm ordering all the cards for this in paper, so they're coming in the mail. So you see here just a little bit cleaner mana base, Copperline Gorgeous, Corpulsion Forest, Stomping Grounds, 1 Ramanap Ruin, all mixed into there. So this deck's quite powerful in that respect. I've been playing it even in best of 1, and it kills so super quick. The other version, so like Todd Anderson and a lot of folks, again, in the Pioneer Leagues have been doing very well with Mono Red Burn, 77% win rate. So this version here, a lot of the same kind of concepts, but swapping out the Questing Druids for Reckless Impulse main, give you some card advantage that way there. Again, to be honest, most of the lists are on the full Monstrous Rage 1 Reckless Impulse. This version's opting to go a little bit more grindy based. And then you get a lot of utility lands between Ruins, Den of the Bugbears, and Sokuzan. This version here is playing like Rending Volleys. One card that's seeing some play is Redcap Melee. As a couple pieces, you have Case in here, Ferocidon's Witchstalker. This version's on Needle. I would probably play on License Hearse or the new 2-mana Lizard, the 1/4 from Thunder Junction. It deals like whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, it deals damage to them equal to the number of non-creature spells they've cast this turn. So reasonable against Phoenix, but I still think I would just proactively play Graveyard Hate in terms of Unlicensed Hearse. So that was the burn section. 5-color Transmogrify is the next highest win rate. I wanted to cover the burn in kind of a package to see the variations between the lists going around. So we've had various Transmog piles or like cheat and play Atraxa. This version is a Rakdos version. So it's leveraging things like Omnixlis token, Fable the Mirrorbreaker token, or Case of the Stash Skeleton token, transmogrifying into Atraxa. You also just have like the Fable kind of game plan. Thoughtseizes, Fatal Push, Duress, just various removal spells that are in there. You can also potentially animate the Bankbuster, make the token that can be transmogged away. Mirrex in the mana base also, along with Mutavault, gives you other options in terms of having a target for the Atraxa. Sideboard, Hand Hate, various removal, Dampening Spear, Unlicensed Hearse, Go Blank for Hand Hate in Exile, Hezuku for smaller things, and Extinction Event as a sweeper. We then go to 5-color Quintorius Release the Winds combo. So the big card that we're seeing in addition here is Spinewood's Armadillo. This is just another card that, similar to Herd Migration, just provides you with another tool that can be cycled, gain you life, get a basic into your hand. Core of this deck is cast Quintorius, minus it, and then you either hit Spark Double or Release the Winds to get multiple casts and multiple copies of Quintorius. With its static ability, you drain your opponent out that way there. You also have the ability with Trumpeting Carnosaur to also exile into kind of the combo element of it. So you always hit these cards here. Some of the versions were also playing Gyruda in place of Bedeck Bedevil as like another secondary fair game plan. So that's something you might be seeing on the ladder. But you can also ramp with Greater Tanuki, Beanstalk Giant to help you get ahead, as well as removal of Leyline Binding and Bedeck Bedevil. Sideboard, you have Sunfall as a sweeper. As a general note, I've been noticing a lot of the blue-white control decks have added either a split of Supreme Verdict and Sunfall or have just shifted to Sunfall. So just be mindful if you're playing like the Indestructible game that Sunfall is more present in the format. Chandra's in here for the counterspell matchups. This one here, Consume, is notable because it can be used to force your opponent to sacrifice their Vein Ripper. Against more controlling matchups, you can bring in like Shark Typhoon, Thought Distortion, Mirror Shell Crab, and you have more removal in Virtue of Persistence. Against Convoke, you can also bring in the new big score Black Mythic, Ministry of Something, or Something of Misery. It's the one that you can basically discard it for 2 mana, target creature gets -2/2, or when it enters the battlefield, all other creatures get -2/2. It's 5 mana, so it doesn't disrupt the Quinn line, but it does disrupt the Trumpeting Carnosaur line. But that's another way to deal with like Convoke or Aggro decks in that capacity. Boros Heroic, 70%, so this is another deck that got the Slick Shot Show-Off upgrade, a very kind of explosive deck. I prefer the mono red decks just because you're able to kind of bring in a little bit more removal, but in this kind of mirror state, at least game 1, this deck has a lot better matchup into the burn deck, if they play, especially like safe with like God's Willing, stuff like that. With the addition of Slick Shot and Virtuoso, I'd probably cut the 10th District and play the full set of God's Willing just as a protectionist spell, but you're just targeting your creatures so they get bigger. With Trample, you get double strike with Virtuoso or just big damage with the Slick Shot Show-Off as well. Similar, just like Enchantment Hate, life gain, counters, protection, removal, card grind for like the more control, like Rakdos mid-range style strategies. We have a return of Mono Green Devotion. So this is a Leyline of the Guild Pack version. So trying to get Leyline into play. We don't have Scion like we do in Modern, but you get Leyline down early. Sunken Citadel can activate Nykthos, so you can kind of cheat huge amounts of mana. Still have your Dark package with the Wolf Willows, Kiora. This version here is on Old Growth Trolls. Moving Wall to Oddity is another mana sink to transform it, give your stuff trample. No Karn in this format, it's banned. You still have your Cavaliers, Nissa, and Storm the Festivals on the top end. Sideboard, you have just Graveyard Hate, again for Vaynerper predominantly, or also just flexible hit artifacts, enchantments. Tail Whip as removal, Graveyard Hate, flexible enchantment, and Graveyard Hate and life gain. Cityscape Leveler as just removal, and then kind of your big fatties on the top end. I would probably, like, over a Tail Swipe, probably play a third Pick Your Poison. This just can hit Slickshot Show Off with, because it has flying, and you can get around protection effects because it's each opponent sacrifices, not target creature. So something just to note there. So this mono black discard is fairly stock in terms of what it's bringing. We see a single copy of Shoot the Sheriff added into the removal package. To be honest, I haven't done a deep dive in terms of like what's incidentally like a rogue or an assassin or stuff like that. But the notable thing here, what a lot of decks are playing in Pioneer, is 2 copies of Karavek, the new 3-mana legendary. So Karavek is whenever you commit a crime, you get to target a black card in your graveyard, and you can basically exile it and cast a copy of it. So that gives you an ability to kind of replay your spells and your cards from the graveyard and gives you extra value. Any of your discard, any of those effects that like target your opponent is a crime. So there's a lot of ways to do that with this deck here. Similar with the sideboard, just more hand hate, anti-life gain for Amalia. Reckoner Bankbuster for grind, Raven Man can make some tokens, Graveyard Hate, Hand Hate with kind of a static ability, good against control, various sweepers, and Invoke Despair to kind of go over the top. Now, the last deck pulled up, and someone went 11-0 with this, up like basically cleaned out through Diamond into Mythic with Mono Black Aggro. And unfortunately, I can't give full credit to their name because I can't read this font in terms of what it says. But this deck here, we got addition of a second 1-mana, basically comes back from the graveyard style effect to go with the Cult Conscripts. So just an aggressively slanted deck. We have Scrap Heap Scavenger in here, Smuggler's Copter. You can basically aggressively attack and then loot away those cards and then get them back. Thoughtseizes, Knight of Even Legion. You got some gigs for card advantage, Graveyard Trespasser, Skitter line, and then Rankle is really good because you can sack your stuff and then force them to discard as well. Notably, this is each player, so this isn't targeting a crime because it's each player. Crime specifically, you'd have to target, but both Graveyard Trespasser's ability and Lord Skitter's ability both trigger crimes as well. Your sideboard in this case, basically anti-mono white hate, Unlicensed Sorcerer Graveyard, Knight of Dust Shadow for the Amalia combo, Dampening Sphere for big mana. You can bring in sweepers if appropriate, Go Blank and Shieldred. I think Ray of Enfeeblement's kind of niche, I would say. I would probably just bring in... I don't even like Heartless Act. I would play Go for the Throat, to be honest, over Heartless Act, just because there's incidental ways that they can get around counters. Sorin puts counters on things, as an example. I think I would play Go for the Throat, and then just kind of have some other removal options in the sideboard. Just cheap, like 1 to 2 mana removal options for like the more aggressively slanted decks. Even something like, so there's Shieldred in this one. Kalidas could be another reasonable threat, but some thoughts in terms of that. But sweet deck, you got Mutavaults in there, Swamps, Hives, Castles, so a lot of good utility lands. That's it for the Explorer format. Hope everyone's having a blast. I am trying to find somewhere in Canada that has Slickshot Show-Offs in stock. I got 2, I need 2 more, and then I can throw the deck together for FNM. In any case, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one. Stay safe out there.